Hello everyone. Previously, we've built an AI agent which had a lot of tools attached to it. So let's just go over what we've built so far and what we're going to build in this video. And it's going to be a little different, so stay tuned. So far, we've built one root agent and we have attached different tools like time zone information, the weather API, Gemini's API to translate our results to different languages. We integrated a voice model to get our results spoken out loud. We integrated a Reddit wrapper, API wrapper, so that we could get some posts from Reddit and then compile all of that and download a PDF file with all that information in the very last video. In this video, I'm going to do something a little different. And this is going to tie it back to the very first video of this playlist that talks about the model context protocol. If you don't know what model context protocol is, it's pretty essential in the world of AI agents. So I suggest you go watch that video to understand why it's needed, how it makes building AI agents simpler. In this video, we're going to do a more hands-on approach for it. So let's talk about what we're going to build this time. So previously, we simply integrated different tools that called different APIs, but we had to define the usage of those APIs pretty directly. For example, in this multi-tool agent, we had our, let's say the weather API. We had to call the weather API pretty explicitly and then parse the responses in the very predefined manner. There is no dynamic way to do this over here. What I want to do is do things a little differently. I mentioned in the video on MCP that the model context protocol, the whole point of it is to make connecting AI tools easier so that we can just type all our commands in natural language and the relevant tool is fetched accordingly. Now, I'm going to implement exactly this kind of structure over here. We're going to have our text inputs as usual. Our root agent will connect to an MCP server, which will be a file system server to be specific. That is the application we're going to build in this video. In next video, we might extend it to something else. This file system MCP server will then connect to its own tools. We don't define these tools in our code. All we do is connect to this server. It's the job of this server to connect to the different tools which can be used to list the files in a certain directory that we've given permission for. It can create new files in that directory. We can add content to files and create folders and many more things which are given to us over here. So this is the official model context protocol profile on GitHub, and it has the servers repository which gives us different servers that you can use to connect with your AI agents. So they've given us a basic overview of this file system MCP server. It says that it's built in Node.js, which is why we can't exactly use it in our Python code very directly and just write our own functions and logic to it. That is why we're going via this MCP server route to achieve this. Of course, you can write an equivalent code in Python, but that is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to understand how to connect our applications with MCP servers using Google's Agent Development Kit. Now, we have this Node.js server. It basically works on MCP and it does some file system operations. It makes our lives easier by implementing that at its end. What can it do for us? It can read write files, create lists, etc. You can pause and read this, or you can just go to this URL and read it up. Now we have basically our API over here, and that's fine. You can read that on your own time. Not going to dig in too much into it to save on some time. It's telling you if you're integrating it with Claude Desktop, there are some instructions, but what we are concerned with is how to use NPX. Now, if you've built applications using Node.js, you would have heard of NPM. Basically, you use NPM to manage your packages. That's basically what NPM is, Node Package Manager. NPX is something similar. It's something that we use to use libraries that are not really installed on our device yet. It gets them in real time. We then are able to use it without explicitly installing it on our device in a global manner. So that's basically what we're doing over here, using npx to get this particular library. And then it says that, okay, once you have this library, you put in an argument. It will be basically like writing a command. That's like saying npx y whatever is our library, and followed by the path of our directory that we want to give it access to. All right, so that's basically the command you run on your terminal, and that's basically how we're defining it over here. How have we implemented it in our own code base? Let's go over that now. So if you notice, I am using Mac OS for this tutorial, not our typical Windows PC, because connecting to MCP servers is a bit of a headache on a Windows PC. It is much more simpler on Mac OS, and the code is very, very seamless. So let's just go over what we're doing over here. So just to help you get started once again, the steps remain pretty much the same. We start by building an environment. So let me just delete this environment, build everything from scratch for you. So we initialize our environment over here, right? So if you have Python 3, you can just use this. I'll use that. My environment has now been made. Then I've already written down the steps. This was discussed in the previous video, one of the previous videos. For Mac OS, I use this to activate my virtual environment. You can see this .venv, which means my virtual environment is now active. Environment is active. Now I need the packages to make my code work. So I will run this command, which will read my libraries from the requirements file and install everything over here. All right. Lastly, I can simply turn my UI on using this command edk web, but that's not something we want to do now. We'll do that after we go over the code base that we have written so far. So everything is installed. Let's move over to this file manager agent, which is basically the new thing over here. This multi-tool agent we've built in the previous few videos. We start with this new agent, file manager agent now. So we have our readme file. I've written it down for you. Some steps basically that you must follow. So you need to set up your ADK, which I just did in front of you. And you need to install or update Python. Your Python should be 3.9 or higher, that its version basically, because MCP requires that as a prerequisite. You need to set up Node.js and NPX. So you can just Google that, how to install Node.js, how to check if NPX is present on your device or not. So that's basically what I'll do over here. So to check if Node is present on my device, I will run this command. And for NPX, I will do something similar. So both are installed on my device by default because I build other applications in Node.js. You have to install it separately if you want this application to work for you. You have to again verify your installations. So since I deleted my environment, I'll have to check if my ADK is installed, and it is. It tells me where it is installed exactly. Same goes for NPX, which I just checked, but I'll check again. All right. So lastly, I've written this one small point that you have to check the version of Node that you are using. Now to use NPX, it's best to just use the later versions of Node. So right now I'm using version 12. I would prefer to use version 20. So I can use this command nvm node version manager to change my Node versions. Now note that I already have version 20 of Node installed. You might have to install it separately. All right. So once this is done, we can talk about the MCP toolset, which is basically a class given to us by Google ADK that helps maintaining connection with MCP servers, exposes them to other LLM agents that we may need to talk to, and basically helps in establishing communication with our MCP servers. Now, that's all the theory I want to talk about right now. I don't want to bore you with it. And I just want to dive straight into the code. So let's go over and talk about our init.py file. It's the same as before. Nothing has been changed over here. Now then we have our env.example file. I had different variables in the other multi-tool agent basically. And all these are not needed for this agent. What's needed is just my specification that says that I'm not using Vertex AI. Again, this was done previously. And what also was done previously was mentioning our Google's API key because we are using Gemini as our root agent. So once that is done, we go over to our agent file. So let's close all this up. And the reason why I'm using Mac OS, I told you, is because I've already tried it. This MCP server does not connect very easily. To make it simpler for you, I'm using Mac OS right now. And for the sake of this tutorial, it's just best that we use Mac OS if it's possible. Or if you have a Windows subsystem for Linux, you can try using that. And let's talk about what we have in our code base over here. So we just do our basic imports. We call our LLM agent, which is used to create our agent. We get this MCP toolset, the class that I was just talking about. Here, I import some modules. Then I import the .env library and call it so that I can get my environment variables. Now, I have to specify the file path that I want to give my agent access to. So it's basically this very path, the path of this project that you're seeing on your screen over here. Now, to define my root agent, it's a little different as compared to the previous one. Previously, what we did was, let's just close all of this up. Previously, we just defined it in the root of this file, right? This time, what we're going to do is make it a little dynamic. I'm saying that let's call a function create agent, and this function will get all the tools from my MCP server. That's all it will do. All right. So to get my tools and the exit stack basically means when the processes are closing, what all does my agent need to take care of? And of course, our tools, the tools that we'll be using to manage our files. So this MCP toolset has a function called from server where we can pass in some connection parameters. And this is standard input at IO server parameters to allow basically our prompt to go forward to the server and for the response to come back to us. Now this is where we pass the command now, command npx. This is basically derived from over here, right? So it looks a little different, but that's okay. Because they haven't really specified how to integrate it with Google Agent Development Kit. That's something that I'm doing for you. So this is how it works over here, that you specify the command, which is npx, and the arguments. This y flag is just used to give permissions to the library so that it can access your files. And this is the library that we are installing in while running it live. And this is a file path that is specified over here. And you can ignore this one. You tried this out on Windows. Like I said, it did not work very well. So I'm using macOS. Lastly, we define our agent very similarly as how we did in our previous implementation. Right? This agent and LLM agent are basically the same thing. Because if you go over here, it is an alias for LLM agent. All right. So I'm just using the LLM agent library. So the function or class would be better. Class directly over here. I'm using Gemini 2.0 Flash. I've specified my name. Instruction is very simple for now. Just help me access my file system. And the tools will be received from this MCP server. Lastly, we return this agent and the exit stack. We handle some errors, any generic errors, and this agent is then returned over here. Now, the process to start our server is same as before. We hit this command adk web. This is the starter server on our port, which should be 8000 over here. So if you go back, new tab, port 8000. Now I'll have to select an agent. In the previous few videos, we just had this one agent, so we did not have to worry about this. Now we'll have to select our agent. This will be the file manager agent. So I'll ask this agent, what can you do? Now note that this is all the code that's needed for it. All the code that's needed. Of course, you set it up and this is all the code, and it will give me the responses from this MCP server's code base. All right. So now I'm interacting with that. It's telling me that it can do all these operations. You can pause this and read this up. I want to start off by listing the files in my directory. But first, I want to list the allowed directories. And let's see which directories does it actually have access to. So it has access to my intro to ADK project, which is the project that is right here. All right, that is something I've specified in my absolute file path. So that is basically what it has access to, nothing more, nothing less. So once that, now what I want to do is I want to list the contents of this directory. So it should basically tell me all the files and folders inside this directory. So it has my git ignore, my virtual environment has been caught, readme, my two agents, and the requirements file. So it's working as expected. I'll do a few more operations and then I'll leave the rest for you to try out once you build it on your own device. So let's start with something simple. Create a file a.txt. Let's see what it does. So it has figured out that this is the directory I have to create it in, and it's an empty file, and this should be over here. It has created it for us. It wasn't present before, it is now. But I don't want to write anything here. I don't want to do that. I want my agent to do it for me. So write hello in this file. So it's writing it for me. It will be done. If I go over here, hello is now present. What if I want to change the contents of this file to hello world. Will it be able to do it? Well, it should, because it says that it can edit files for me over here. So it says that it's hello world now. So it has changed the contents of my file, and I want to do one more complex example. So I'll ask it to do the following: create a folder called test. Inside this folder, create a file called b.txt, copy contents from a.txt to this file, and then move a.txt to this folder. So this is a complex task. I'm asking it to create a folder, create a file inside this folder, copy contents from a different file over here, and lastly move a file from somewhere outside to this folder. So let's see how well it performs this action. So my create directory function has run. It's writing a file which should be b.txt. It is reading my a.txt most probably, writing contents to b.txt, and lastly moving my a.txt file. Let's wait for its response. So it says that it has done all of this, and let's see how well has it performed. Okay, so my a.txt file is now gone, as you can see from this red line over here. This test file, so test folder now has b.txt, it has hello world, and a.txt has hello world as well. So it is able to perform all the tasks that it has promised that it will be able to, and that's pretty good for me. In the next video, we'll explore more such servers, so stay tuned and follow for more such content.